Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast. The show today will include the Bengals stay alive in the playoff hunt with an overtime win. The Chiefs offense comes alive while clinching the number one seed in the AFC. The Rams edge the Cardinals to retain an NFC West lead. The Ravens eviscerate the Texans, and the Vikings will play for the number one seed in the NFC next week. Let's talk about the biggest takeaways from the Week 17 action. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by DraftKings Pick 6 and Live Golf. I'm Jim Coventry, and you can find me on the X at Jim Coventry NFL. All right, everybody, instant reaction number one. The Bengals stay alive in the playoff hunt with a thrilling 30-24 win over the Broncos. Yeah, and this show will cover a lot of the weekend games. I know it was just Sunday, but these are some big games this weekend, going back to the Christmas Day games even. But this one was a Saturday game, and it was in a really nice middle afternoon spot. So in this game, the beauty of Joe Burrow is he throws for 412 yards, 3 touchdowns, runs for another touchdown, 25 yards. The Bengals are still alive. Now, I believe they need the Dolphins to lose, the Broncos lose, and they need to win. But hey, that's only 3 options. There are greater things have happened. So why is Burrow so amazing? His offensive line's not very good. Denver was trying to send as much heat as possible, and it got home a lot. But here's the deal. Joe Burrow is used to pressure. He's played against Myles Garrett and the Browns. He's played against TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, and the Steelers. It's a way of life for him. They've had big profile games. Chris Jones faced him plenty of times in the playoffs. So he's used to being under pressure, and he has 2 amazing receivers. So the ability, to know I've got these guys I could trust. I just got to get the ball to them, and I got to get it out quickly. And that's the speed they live at. So Joe Burrow is plenty capable, as you know, of putting up insane performances like this. And what a fantasy week winner he was, too, if you needed Burrow, because, again, against 400 yards, 4 total touchdowns, ran for yards, insanely good. Jamar Chase doesn't find the end zone, but he does go 9 for $1, too, so it wasn't that ceiling game, but it's really hard to argue with 19 PPR points. Oh, my gosh, T. Higgins. And here's the thing. I didn't draft T. Higgins this year, and I don't regret it. Now, if you face T. Higgins in the fantasy finals, or if you had him one way or the other, that's a difference maker, because he goes 11 catches, $131, and 3 touchdowns. But he missed a lot of time. He's unreliable when he's off and on the field. But this is what the best version of T. Higgins looks like. Star receiver playing across from a megastar receiver. And it was beautiful how often they picked on Riley Moss, because Patrick Surtain often, not always, was on Jamar Chase. And man, Burrow just said, you know what? You're a nice corner, Moss. And then the other McMillan was on that side sometimes. But Burrow's just smart. They're good, but they're not T. Higgins good. And when Surtain was not Chase, then nobody's Jamar Chase good. And so that's the beauty of it all. So yeah, just plug away, chop. And it was just a thing of beauty. And then Chase Brown did hurt his ankle at the end of the game. They were trying to just kill the clock, and they run it on the next play at Burrow. Chase Brown does the responsible thing. He's going to kneel down there and kick an 18-yard field goal and win. Well, he somehow folds his ankle up. Now, the early word is he could be ready for next game. They do need him. Khalil Herbert would take over. So if you're looking at playing, if those who play in Week 18, you'll want to consider that move of rostering Herbert, because last time we saw Herbert play a real role, Chicago, 4.6 yards per carry. But again, great props to the Bengals. That offense did what they have to do. The defense did enough. Look, it's not a great defense. They're going to have to outscore people to win. It'd be cool if they made the playoffs. And no offense to the Broncos, and no offense to Miami, but it would be great for football if the Bengals made the playoffs, because any game they're in, it could be just an instant classic. I don't know that if the Broncos play any of the teams ahead of them in the field, that we're going to have a classic. And certainly if Miami plays, we're probably not going to have a classic. So if this can work out for those that just love football, it would be fun to see the Bengals in the first round of the playoffs, because they could beat any team they face, and they also can get the floor wiped with them. Look, Denver side of the ball, Bo Nix is a good quarterback, but there's limitations. the downfield passing, he had a really nice hit to Marvin Mims, but there's times you just see him in missing. It's not the strength of his game. He's a point guard. At his best, he's a point guard. If he has a great defense, if they have a legitimate running game, and he doesn't have, besides Cortland Sutton, I mean, they're making Marvin Mims work, and Mims has been hot. And credit to Bo Nix. Again, he's a good quarterback. But he's not like this franchise guy. And again, people say it might take time, and I'm not going to dispute that. And he could get better. But I just think there's limitations to his game. No knock on him. But the running game doesn't help. They get McLaughlin in here. It's kind of a scat back, goes 10 for 69. They don't give any carries to Javonte Williams. It still kind of confounds me. Well, defenses usually know if Williams is in, he's getting the ball. They're too predictable that way. And I think McLaughlin gets success because defenses assume they're in a pass package or he's in the game. So when he gets the ball, defenses do back off. And so it's kind of clear to me. And it's the same thing with Audric Estime. When Estime's in, it's almost like telegraphing. We're running, we're passing, and it's not a good combination. Cortland Sutton did get 9 targets out of 31 passes. I still thought it wasn't enough. I thought that there were times when they needed a play and they went to him. But as the game got in the late fourth quarter and overtime, Denver had multiple chances to put this game away. And I really thought that Sean Payton was calling the game like a coward. He was just calling it, say, all right, get my defense back on the field. Let me just no risks on offense. Move the chains, because that defense is great, but they're not great against elite offenses. The Denver offense has no chance against any of the top players, the top teams. They don't have a chance. They're playing, the Bills. Good luck. If they're playing the Ravens, good luck. Bengals, good luck. So realistically, they need to be more aggressive on offense. And the loss doesn't cripple them. They play the Chiefs next week. The Chiefs have nothing to play for. We've seen it before. Doesn't matter. You could get beat, but it certainly sets up nicely for Denver. And you would think Andy Reid, never know what he's going to do, but you would think he's going to sit some starters. You would think. Chris Jones is banged up. Patrick Mahomes, look, he looks great, but if he had a high ankle sprain and it's even like 95%, you got to sit him, right? So there would be that. Before I move forward to my next one, I did have a good question in here, right? What's the benefit of the Lions starters playing tomorrow? The only thing is this, and this is a critical one. The Lions offensively, they have to remain on point. They can't afford to not score on possessions. With the defensive injuries they have, it is so problematic that when they're playing any high-level offense, they're not stopping anybody. So, and the counterpoint would be, well, they don't want to get anybody hurt. That ship has sailed. They've had so many injuries at this point, that offense can't afford to be off rhythm at all. If they take a week off, and then they play in the playoffs, and there's, they play the Vikings next week. But if there's any rust from taking a bye, teams don't always, this is a bye week, and so to speak, teams don't always come back great from a bye. And if that happens, and if Detroit sputters out the gate a little bit and they lose the 1 seed, that's catastrophic, because then they're a wild card. It's not like you go from the 1 seed to the 2 seed. No, you go from the 1 seed to the 5 seed, because Minnesota would win the division. They cannot play on the road. In my mind, again, I know nothing. I cannot see Dan Campbell resting players in this game, because they can't lose any momentum that they have. It's a great, great question. And for fantasy, it's a huge, of course, how many players do you pivot at this point, right? But yeah, that's a fantastic question, which brings us now to instant reaction number 2, which this will be based on what we're talking about with the Lions. Instant reaction number 2 is the Packers and the Vikings play, but the Vikings come out with the win. And guess what? As you just mentioned, these Vikings will be playing for the number 1 seed against the Lions next week. Absolutely incredible. So first of all, the Packers are looking for payback. Remember that week 4 game, the Vikings go out 28-0. And then Jordan Love's coming back from that ankle injury, probably shouldn't have played, but they make a valiant comeback. I think it was 31-29 in that game. This game wasn't a whole lot different. Packers are down 13-3 at the half. They're down 20-3 midway through the third quarter. Jordan Love had done next to nothing. Josh Jacobs did a little bit of damage, but again, nothing catastrophic. But really, through midway through the third quarter, this was not a game. It was 20-3. Minnesota was humming along. And Sam Darnold taking care of business as usual. The rushing attack, Aaron Jones dinged up on and off the field, didn't finish the game, so we're not quite sure what's going on with him, but they're going to need him. They are going to need him. Now, like I said, next week against the Lions, I think both teams could score at will, but having Aaron Jones, that's a huge deal for them. And I know Cam Akers played decently. They need Aaron Jones. So let's hope he's healthy, because I'd like to see all these teams at full health getting into the playoffs. But Darnold throws for 377 and 3 touchdowns, does throw a pick. The only receiver that didn't score was Jefferson. Naylor scores wide open. They left him alone. Addison scores, but Jefferson does go 8 for 92. So again, solid game. And when the Vikings were looking to ice this game, that's really more when they were going to Jefferson, because Green Bay always is nice to have a cloud coverage on Jefferson. They just don't give a lot of windows, and Darnold has all these other open dudes, so it's like not going to force the ball your way. But then it came down in the second half, and it was just like, we need to move the chains. We're getting the ball to Justin Jefferson. And I think that shows a lot of maturity on Sam Darnold's part. Realizing the importance of closing out a game. I mean, the fact the Vikings are 14-2. I mean, what was the best case scenario we would have imagined for a season for them? 11-6, 14-2. Can't say enough about them. But Sam Darnold, again, now Green Bay's not great at getting pressure, but times when they did, Darnold is navigating the pocket, looking downfield. He really does look like he's in the perfect system. He has enough protection, and it could not be a better circumstance. And my question now is this: how did the Vikings not bring him back? I know they drafted J.J. McCarthy, but they're 14-2, and they're playing for the 1 seed. I don't know how you don't bring Darnold back, because McCarthy was considered a project by Greg Cosell, and I believe Greg Cosell, maybe too much, but he thought in their house, the Vikings, they thought that it was more of a project, which is part of the reason why they were happy to start Darnold. But then the ACL injury kicked in, and there was all that. But I don't know. It's almost like you got to bring Darnold back. Green Bay side of the ball, oh man, I don't know right now. I thought this was a team, and again, the score is going to look close, 27-25. Get it? But realistically, Jordan Love, 19-30, that looks nice, 185 yards and a touchdown. If it wasn't for Romeo Doubs getting a lot of production at garbage time, that 7 for 58 was it. Other than that, Tucker Kraft had a 35 and an 18-yard catch. Wicks, 4 for 43. We know Jaden Reed. And I warned people in this in the start, said I marked him really low, but I put a green on. The green was upside. And because he had 137 yards and a touchdown, you could get him on the linebackers that struggle to cover in Minnesota. And I really, really, really don't know what Matt LaFleur's game plan was here, because I don't know how that game plan doesn't involve getting Jaden Reed more than 4 targets. I just don't understand. The use of him this year has been irresponsible. Not a full-time player. They play him in the slot, but there has to be a way, especially with Christian Watson out, that he has to be the focal point of the passing game. Will they fix it? Maybe. But there's been nothing to inspire confidence that would really be the case. So, yeah, it was very, very problematic and very troubling. Let's take a quick break to tell you about the DraftKings Pick 6.
We're proud to be brought to you by DraftKings Pick 6. So many NFL offerings each week over at Pick 6. Been enjoying playing on the Pick 6 platform each and every week of the NFL season. Think a certain quarterback will throw for more than 300 yards. How about your favorite receiver scoring a touchdown? Check out Pick 6, the newest way to play fantasy football and win cash right now with DraftKings. Here's how it works. Just pick 2 to 6 players of the same sport and choose if they'll have more or less of a given stat. Yards, catches, touchdowns, etc. Lock in those picks and compete against opponents for a shot at huge cash prizes. Download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app now and use our code ROTOPICK. That's ROTOPICK. Again, ROTOPICK, ROTOPICK. If you're a new Pick 6 customer, play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits guaranteed. Just use that code, ROTOPICK. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-78-89-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick Six not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. See terms at picksix.draftkings.com/promos.
All right, so instant reaction number 3, the Chiefs offense comes alive while clinching the number 1 seed against the Pittsburgh Steelers on the road. This was a breakthrough game. We have seen the Chiefs all year, and we have not seen explosive plays with any regularity on offense, and that's been the problem. Then, Xavier Worthy was like overextended. More on him later. It's better now. It's way better now. The running game, Pacheco missed a long stretch of time. Obviously, still not playing a lot, but no explosives in the running game. This is a team that was just basically just finding ways to grind the clock down, play it late, know that your game experience will win you games. Well, it's not what happened at Pittsburgh. And they took it to the Steelers. And the Steelers are an excellent defense, great pass rush. Joe Thuney's been moved to left tackle, and that's made a big difference. And Patrick Mahomes, 29 to 38, 320, and 3 touchdowns. Just basically point guard plus, finds Justin Watson deep, usually doesn't catch the ball. He catches a touchdown there. We see Travis Kelce. Here was the thing. In the preseason, we talked about this. Now, I know Rashee Rice was gone, and that's been a killer. But we talked about the 2 players. We talked about Marquise Brown, and we talked about Xavier Worthy. And they both have outstanding speed. They're different types of speed. Worthy is more the guy that will scare you if he gets deep, because that speed is game-breaking if it's used right. And we know Hollywood Brown will get that speed in the middle area of the field, get separation, big yards after the catch potential. That speed puts the fear in the defense. They have to play you so differently. Remember, the league's defense is one of the main points is to limit explosive plays. But when there's that kind of speed on the field, those are exactly the things that you're looking to contain. And so look, Marquise Brown up to 40% of the snaps. It was 27% in the first game. He had 8 targets in the first game, 7 in the second, 4 for 46. The numbers are not eye-popping, but again, it's allowing players around him to be better. Xavier Worthy has like 11 targets, I believe, in 3 straight games, if not as 3 or 4 games, 8 for 79 in a touchdown. There's more room for him now. DeAndre Hopkins is a very much ancillary player. At this point, I think the only thing we'll see for Hopkins, if defenses start to really go over the top to play deep because of the speed of Brown and Worthy, then I think Hopkins is a safety valve. But if defenses continue to play kind of straight up, I don't think DeAndre Hopkins, and there's no great stunner to anybody, is probably going to be a big factor, but he'll be a big third down factor if they need that. But this, again, the creation of space. Travis Kelce's not moving as well as he once had, but now we look at Kelce, an 8 for 84. We'll take that. We'll take it because there's going to be more space in the middle of the field. And this is what we talked about in the offseason. So right now, insane. But from the time the Chiefs won, they clinched a 1 seed. It's 23 or 24 days off until they have to play. I don't know what Andy Reid will do. I said this earlier. If he rests the starters, he should. Because this team has the experience. They're not going to come out flat coming out of a bye. They have so much experience with this. Bye weeks. Andy Reid, the king of bye weeks, right? Coming back. This team will not come out unprepared from a bye week. And for this team to walk into the playoffs potentially like close to 100% healthy, oh my gosh, look out. Chris Jones, whatever he was thinking of, healthy. Jalen Watson, the corner, they're hoping to get him back. That would be huge for them because that secondary struggled. And on the offensive side, my guess is Isaiah Pacheco is still working his way back, but another 23 days, you got to think he could be a full go for the playoffs. And if he's back to his explosive self and defense have to worry about that, I know a lot of you hate the Chiefs. I understand. But my goodness, I just good luck dealing with them if all these weapons are out there and they're healthy and Mahomes is dealing like this. Steelers side, look, they've been a good story this year. But ultimately, they're a limited team. George Pickens, 3 for 50. We thought we'd have a bigger game here. The rushing attack, the yardage for fantasy were fine. Jalen Warren got you 112 yards, something like that. Scrimmagers. Najee got you 81. Most of that was in garbage time. Warren did a little bit earlier, but when that game was like over late and it was a blowout, they were running the ball, getting these big chunks of yardage, and they weren't calling timeouts, just letting it go. But realistically, Pat Fryermuth, 7 for 60. He was the best receiving contributor. Russell Wilson, 205 yards, 2 picks. He did run for some, so there's that. But if I remember right, he fumbled, and so there's that too. You don't want him running the ball anymore. You really don't, but what else do they have at this point? So I think at this point, the Steelers fit their rust pass of the schedule. I top of my head, I think they play the Bengals next week. I wish I knew that. I'm sorry I don't. But yeah, it's not a cake game. But all that said, the Ravens are kind of in the driver's seat right now. Is a big loss for the Steelers. So yeah, but I'm worried about them. I think that they're unfortunately going to be a one and done. I was kind of hoping that wouldn't be the case, but yeah, right now not looking so good. Well, I tell you what, we're going to go over more of this week's reactions after we take a short break. All right, instant reaction number 4. Back to Saturday Night Football. The Rams edge the Cardinals to retain the NFC West lead, 13-9 victory. Now, to my understanding, this is being taped, recorded before the Sunday Night Football game. The word is, if the Washington Commanders beat the Atlanta Falcons on Sunday night, the strength of victory would go to the Rams over the Seahawks, and next week's Rams-Seahawks game would be inconsequential. The Rams will take a bye week. Sean McVay's history shows that if there's a game they don't have to play, they don't play, whether it's preseason, regular season, whatnot. So understand that. Sean McVay, if Washington beats the Falcons, and you go verify this later anyway, that's fine. But if they clinch that, nothing to play for next week. So those who play in fantasy will have to be careful of that in week 18. A lot of you, week 17, you're done, so you don't have to worry about it. But the Rams edging the Cardinals. Look, it was not an impressive game. And here, that's the deal with the Rams. And those who've been listening to my shows with some regularity, you hear me say it. I do not trust the Rams from week to week. I will not bet them. I will not bet props on them. I do my $10 same game parlays, a little bit in there, fine, whatever. But I won't bet them. I have no idea which team is showing up each week. Kyren Williams, he had been going up for big yardage for like the last month, 13 for 56 and a touchdown. So he does get the touchdown. Fantasy, he's fine. But you know what? The passing game, it is like all the Puka Nacua show now. It's like all him. Last week, I want to say Stafford completed 14 passes last week. This week, 16. And I want to say that Nacua caught 8 of those. Well, this week, Stafford completes 17 passes. 10 of those went to Puka Nacua. Nacua goes 10 for $129. Next receiver, 1 catch, 29 yards for Cooper Kupp. Nacua had 100 more yards than everybody else in a game that Stafford only passed for 189. Nacua has been beautiful. It's been beautiful for 2 years now. Does much better against zone than against man. If they play a playoff game and they run in, and there aren't many elite corners in the NFC, top of my head, Jair Alexander's, been down if they face them. He's been down with a knee injury. I don't know what his status is. There aren't many. So they might be okay. But if there's a point where Nacua really catches a top corner, I do worry about that, especially with the way they're funneling targets at him. And honestly, playoff game plans are hyper-specific. And at that point, if they're going to throw it to Nacua that much, well, I'm going to bracket him. And at this point, say Cooper Kupp beat us because Cooper Kupp, what does he have, less than 30 yards in 3 of the last 4 games? I would almost take that chance right now because Stafford's are so reliant on him. And they almost lost that game. If you watched it, you saw that the Rams were giving up a game-ending drive. The Cardinals no guarantee they would score a touchdown. They were deep in territory. They needed a touchdown to win. And then beautiful interception. I think it was Akello Witherspoon. I wish I remember. I think it's Akello Witherspoon. It's a beautiful interception. Made a nice diving play, kept the ball off the turf. Just a great game-saving interception. But again, not a show of force. But here's the deal. We talk about it all the time. Divisional games are different. They're a different animal. And you don't treat those the same. When you play the Cardinals, divisional opponent. And so you always say, and especially the second time they play each other, a lot of these games are way closer than they should be. So I either lay off betting those or sometimes I'll bet the underdog. Just kind of that second familiarity thing is often a thing. It doesn't always happen, but it is something I often look at. Look, real quick on the Arizona side of the ball, I felt bad for James Conner. He tried to gut it out with a knee injury, made it through 6 touches. 4 carries, 4 yards, 2 catches, 4 yards, and then the knee was not good enough. And Michael Carter ended up doing fine because Trey Benson didn't play. Carter went 13 for 70, 2 catches, 11. But I doubt many people started him unless you were in a really deep league because Connor was expected to go. But those who started Connor, yeah, it was rough. I did sit him in an important league. I didn't trust the knee, but didn't matter anyway for my team, that team. But yeah, nonetheless, I was worried about him. And I love James Conner. I'm a James Conner guy. But anyway, that was rough. It was good to see Marvin Harrison have a decent game, 6 for 96. Now, remember, he destroyed the Rams back, what was it, week 2, 3? He destroyed them in a half. And they blew him out, and they didn't need to do much. But it's Trey McBride. Everybody rightfully is talking about Brock Bowers. Is Trey McBride any less good? Are they both like megastars? McBride has was it 4 touchdowns for Bowers, 1 for McBride? I'll look up the yardage tomorrow, but McBride's got to be ahead of him. McBride has just been insane. 12 for $123, and he finally scores a touchdown. He forced him a touchdown. I thought it was cool. To do that. 16 targets. They're both megastars. And George Kittle, if he gets anything yardage wise, he'll have another 1,000-yard season this year. But right now, it's those 3, right? And honestly, with the way McBride and Bowers just get that incredible PPR volume, I got to put him ahead of Kittle, and Kittle's over 30. But that's my top. Anybody's top 3 now, right? But McBride just insane. Hey, a new season of Live Golf Fantasy is coming in 2025. New prizes, new ways to win, and more are coming in the new season. Get ready to play and sign up now at fantasy.livegolf.com. Instant reaction number 5. The Ravens eviscerate. Yes, I used the word eviscerate the Texans 31-2. The Texans can thank Derrick Henry for not running straight, but turning back into the end zone and taking a safety. That's not a Derrick Henry move, but it was in that game. Derrick Henry takes a safety, and those are the only points that the Texans scored. Ouch. Double ouch. The Ravens, this is why we don't look at seasonal numbers for fantasy and for handicapping. Teams change often. Not all teams. Some teams are terrible all year. Some teams are great all year. Earlier in the season, the Ravens were hemorrhaging big plays in the passing game. They were good against the run. Even in the tight ends in the middle of the field was problematic. They have really tightened things up. And they went through a lot. They lost like 3 coaches on the defensive side from last year. But this is a well-run organization. John Harbaugh, the steadying influence, whoever you got in their coaching defense, they just continue to figure things out. This is such a resilient group, and they cycled some players. Eddie Jackson wasn't working out. They got rid of him. And look, Roquan Smith is not playing as fast as he did as we saw him in the past. That hasn't been wonderful, but they're figuring it out. They find out the strengths and the weaknesses. They kind of make things work. They're not giving up a big explosive plays with regularity anymore. The run defense is solid. This is not a top 5 defense, but is it a top 10? Yeah, I think it's a top 10 defense right now. And Patrick Ricard, my fullback love, 59% of the snaps on the field. They're going to do this in January. They are going to get downhill with Derrick Henry. And if defenses try to commit to it, Lamar's just going to double back and take off. Oh my gosh, that read, he took off for a 50-yard touchdown. Beautiful. As soon as he hit the outside, it was a TV copy. I didn't see the defense behind him. Didn't matter. He's gone. Lamar Jackson, 15 pass attempts and 4 rush attempts. So that's 19 touches. He put up 30 fantasy points. It's sick. Derrick Henry, 147 yards on the ground, a touchdown. Played 65% of snaps. Big number for him. They don't need their receivers that much. Mark Andrews, on total points, is top 6 tight end this year, which, given the start to the season, a couple goose eggs, I think. Crazy. 2 for 68. Again, 2 targets. He catches a 67-yard pass, and then he catches a 1-yard touchdown. So he cashes for fantasy for you. But Zay Flowers is an excellent player, but they're not going to need him a lot. There's a lot of games they just don't need him. 5 targets, 2 for 31. That was it. And Houston's a really good defense. But here's the thing. Going into that game, we thought this. The Ravens can bully certain teams. And I thought all along, oh, yeah, this is a spot where the Ravens will bully them. They will just beat up that defense. And that was what I said when they played the Bills early in the season. Bills are a nice defense. But, man, the Bills are going to get road graded by them. And if the Bills play the Ravens in the playoffs, they are going to run the ball down their throats. They're a nickel team. We'll get off Buffalo in a minute, but that's probably your second round matchup if the chalk holds. That'd be your second round matchup. And if it is, and they'll be playing in Buffalo, and I tell you what Derrick Henry wants, give me 4 inches of snow. I'll run it down your throats even more. I'd love to see that game. I think that'd be the classic of the postseason. I'm not saying much about the Texans. The offensive line's horrible. You heard me chirp all offseason about them not using the fullbacks, and therefore teams played too high shell on him. And CJ Stroud, that was his regression. That's all his regression was. Last year, he saw single high safeties because they ran a fullback and they gave him the opportunity to throw it downfield. Took that away. I don't know how they don't see it. I don't know how national media doesn't see it, but CJ Stroud is not seeing favorable looks because they're no longer running a style of offense similar to the 49ers, the Ravens, and at times in the past, the Dolphins. Those teams all had success, including the Texans last year. Maybe they'll figure it out in the offseason. Maybe they won't. Nico Collins has been hurt by this because now defenses are just kind of, the too shy shell over top. They understand that he goes underneath it, and he was really great with that. But I think CJ Stroud's gotten his head a little bit at this point. And so they're going to have to figure some things out. I like CJ Stroud. He's a talented young man. We know that. They'll figure some things out. But the offensive line has to get fixed. The offensive line, and we thought it was a strength going into this year. For whatever reason, it hasn't been. So I do think they'll get it fixed. But that obviously they're making the playoffs. They're going to win they won their division. But yeah, it's the 3:30, 4:30 Eastern time Saturday slot game, and it's probably not going to be a really nice finish because they're going to end up playing what would you say, either the Ravens or the Bills. Yeah, probably not a good afternoon for them. I don't know who the matchup will be, and I'm not thinking that one through right. It won't be them. It'll be one of the wild cards. But yeah, that said, not too excited about that. Anyway, RotoWire covers all the fantasy sports. You can get a free 2-day trial. No credit card needed. Just go to rotowire.com/pod. Check out what we got. If you like it, join the team. If not, we're just glad you took a look. We want to thank our sponsors, DraftKings, Pick 6, and Live Golf. Thanks to everyone for listening. Come back next week for another edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast.